these strict diets that are like keto or carnivore, people are seeing results pretty fast because they're cutting out so many things at once,
Right.
and they think that that is the diet that they have to live on for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
We need carbs. We don't need a ton of fats either. Fats are good for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but carbs are good for us too, in my opinion. And from what I've experimented on myself and my kids.
What is up, everybody? My name is Kyle Matovcik. I am the host of the In Liberty and Health podcast, where we talk all things liberty, health, and wellness, and beyond. My hope is to encourage and spread the message of liberty and physical and mental well-being. I hope you enjoy all the topics we talk about with our guests. We're on all major streaming platforms, so please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Man, I'm doing as good as anyone can do getting buried by his 13-year-old son on leg day.
I'm not going to apologize for not being on this podcast because I got to go see Metallica. So if that's a problem, kiss my ass. Okay? All right.
All right, everybody, this is In Liberty and Health, episode number 188. Oh, man, I'm starting to nail these freaking numbers, almost 200 episodes in. Anyways, I have Sam from the Quantum Revival here with me today. She randomly followed me on Twitter, and I followed her back. I think she's awesome because I remember seeing in her bio saying something about carbs. I'm like, oh, my God, I love her now. So anyway, Sam, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, I guess let's start off. Who are you and what do you do?
I kind of do a little bit of everything, it seems, but I'm an ex-ICU nurse. I was an ICU nurse for 10 years. Worked in ER a little bit, kind of all over the hospital, and just having kids. I had my own 2 kids with autoimmune disease and myself, and just that fast-paced life, and knowing that they never really get to the root cause. And I literally had to take our health into our own hands and heal my kids and myself. And then I knew I couldn't stay in that atmosphere for a long time because it just was eating away at my purpose. And my purpose is to restore health and liberate people from that culture of just every eel needs a peel, and just this constant turmoil. So I kind of just help empower people. I study herbalism. Medicinal mushrooms are included, and I'm kind of falling off of it. I'm not really making products anymore. I'm more so just kind of speaking and educating people locally, and mostly online though. But I think, yeah, that's about it.
Cool. All right. So one thing I kind of wanted to drill in on there, when you say herbalism, I think a lot of people who aren't quite into the health space, they may think that you're a quack and that you're crazy. And I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty ignorant of this area. So I understand that there were some trials when it came to like psilocybin and stuff like that, helping people with mental issues. And then some people bring up like the MK Ultra stuff, which I don't think necessarily, I'm just not that well enough informed on it, but I'm sure there's some good and then obviously some bad as well. I guess kind of what was your experience with that, and what got you interested in that, and what convinced you that that works? So I know that's a lot at you, but I'm sure you can kind of make sense of it.
I guess if you're like literally at the end of your rope, and you're chronically ill, you're depressed, and this was me. I was very depressed, anxious, working full time. I had 2 kids that were pretty sick too, and I just felt so like overwhelmed. I'm like, God, what do I do? And honestly, I just feel very spiritually in tune with earth. I kind of always have, but that part of my life, I was very far from my natural state. I wasn't spending a lot of time in nature. I wasn't really taking time to really take care of myself. Sitting on the coffee on my phone is not considered taking care of myself. That's relaxing, but it's not relaxing. And then all of a sudden I was doing research. I came across a book with like paleo diet, and it was called Autoimmune Paleo. And then I don't know how it happens. I'm just like stumbling upon medicinal mushrooms, and I'm like, ooh, reishi, cordyceps, and then I buy this book and I read about all the mushrooms, psilocybin too, which I didn't initially try for a very long time because I was nursing and I didn't want to lose my job or anything.
Right.
And I don't know, like I was very, by the book. I didn't want to lose my job.
Sure.
But and yeah, I mean, I grew up, in a small town, and alcohol is, a big deal. I guess it's
Right.
pretty much everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So alcohol was your way to kind of escape and have fun. And that just made me more sick. I ended up becoming allergic to it.
Wow.
That's kind of like off on a tangent, but I'm not trying to say like I stopped alcohol and now I do psilocybin, which I don't even do that anymore. I have experimented with it, and I do think it has good properties, but I think it, just like anything else, it can be overused. So, if you're going through like a really big, deep spiritual change and a holistic revival of sorts, maybe it can help you through it, because I think it did help me, and help me see things that I know, maybe I had a block to. But these herbs and these mushrooms literally just show up when I felt like I needed them the most, so it's very much a spiritual journey for me.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So one specific type of mushroom that I've heard about, and I actually took it for a little bit, and I've heard it's actually a performance enhancer, is cordyceps. I don't know how much you know about this, but I remember, I don't know if you watch Mind Pump at all, but they're like the biggest fitness podcast. And I remember their guy who's been on this podcast, Sal Stefano, mentioning that cordyceps is a performance enhancer. And, so I'm guessing, do you know any more about that and perhaps how that works?
I don't know like deep enough of it. I mean, I do know it's good for endurance. It's good for stamina. I believe, if I'm correct, it helps with testosterone levels. I believe reishi is good for hormones too, but I think over time it can cause a lower testosterone. So that's why I like pairing the two. Those are probably my favorites. I do take cordyceps and beetroot before I work out, and it really gives me a good pump. And I think mushrooms actually help with muscle growth and muscle retention too, like keeping your muscle on when you're taking a break, that sort of thing.
Okay, yes. Yeah. So do you know anything about Tonkat? I know that's kind of been like the new thing recently, where everybody's kind of touting that out as some kind of test booster. I took it for a little bit, and I've heard other anecdotal accounts of people kind of like their sleep going a little bit south. But other than that, I've seen mostly good stuff. I can't say me personally I noticed much of a difference, but I mean, I was also kind of like experimenting with beta-ecdysterone and terkesterone as well. I can't say any of those compounds really jumped out at me as like the thing, but either I'm not a responder or there may be something else going on there. So I don't know if you have any thoughts around Tonkat, beta-alanine, or anything, or no, I'm sorry, not beta-alanine, beta-ecdysterone or terkesterone either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know much about it to like experiment. I mean, at one point I did make my own organic pre-workout.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah.
And I had to test the ingredients, and there was one that I was like allergic to. But this had to be probably 6 years ago. And the pre-workout was called Ragnarok. It was so funny. Me and my friend made it. It was so cute. We had a Viking ship on it, but it had beetroot in it. It didn't have cordyceps, but I would love to add that to the formula. But other than that, I don't really know that much about all of that.
Okay. Yeah, no problem then. So one thing that you kind of talked about there too, which I don't know if I necessarily fell victim to it, but I know my wife did. And this was kind of like the first kind of like light bulb moment for me, where I learned, oh, nutrition actually matters when you're getting into good shape. So I'll try to keep the story brief so I can throw it over to you. But about 4 years ago, I was 250 pounds. And right now I normally average around like 190 to 195. And I had lots of digestive issues and probably what was depression, but I was just never formally diagnosed. So I obviously don't say that I was depressed. Suicidal ideation a lot. And my wife I remember her saying that she believed she had a gluten allergy, so she cut out gluten. And then that was kind of like I said, the light bulb moment for me. And then eventually I went carnivore, and all these issues went away when I lost the weight. So I don't know if maybe there were gut issues or if it was the weight or what exactly it was, or if it was a combination of the both. But now obviously I'm in a much, much better place and much better shape. And obviously my wife has to eat gluten free, so I pretty much like learned how to cook with coconut flour and almond flour. So I guess what's kind of been your experience with autoimmune disease? Because I know my wife can be pretty finicky about stuff as well. Like even seasonings with gluten, just she'll be bedridden almost.
Oh yeah. Does she have celiac maybe? Or she don't
Um,
know?
we believe
We
so.
don't, yeah, and I didn't mean to ask that on live,
No,
but
that's okay. Yeah, I talk about it all the time. Not like her personal details, but the fact that she has celiacs.
yeah, my oldest has it, so that's why I was wondering.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was one of the first things that I've noticed that when I started doing my own research, they were linking gluten to like psoriasis, and arthritis in children. It's not really talked about. It's not. I mean, if these children were able to go gluten free, a lot of them probably wouldn't be on these long-term medications that can cause infertility and
Mhm.
they're chemo drugs. That's what my daughter was on,
Oh
and they
wow.
take that for years, and they're on steroids too. But anyway, back to like the gluten. So people get obsessed over cutting everything, out at once. And I will like say, if someone's having like a really bad flare up or something, yeah, you need to be really strict.
Mhm.
And I actually covered that on my YouTube video last night that I posted. Um, you can do a really strict diet to really hone in on that inflammation. It's called low FODMAP.
Yeah.
So if anyone's ever listening or has this issue, you can always do that periodically, and it's kind of like a medicinal diet plan in a way. Even doctors mention it. I've seen on YouTube and other things. And it's, yeah, FODMAP. They have an app too, so it kind of tells you what foods are low in that. That helps with inflammation. But also, what I'm getting to is like these strict diets that are like keto or carnivore. People are seeing results pretty fast because they're cutting out so many things at once.
Right.
And they think that that is the diet that they have to live on for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
We need carbs. We don't need a ton of fats either. Fats are good for us.
Mhm.
I mean, but carbs are good for us too, in my opinion. And from what I've experimented on myself and my kids,
Mhm.
that just going gluten free really helps a lot. So, and it's a sustainable diet, you're not really missing out on a lot. There's a lot of options when you're just
Yeah.
gluten free,
Well,
not
and
carb.
plus, yeah, if you learn to cook, then it's really not that hard. Like I said, I can tolerate gluten pretty well. It doesn't bother me at all. But my wife unfortunately can't. So, like I said, I pretty much just learned ever since I started to cook a lot, to just make the stuff for her. So yeah,
Yeah.
like the low FODMAP diet, if I remember correctly, you get rid of like onions, cauliflower, there's some certain vegetables that for some people don't sit right. And I know for me, I don't know if like my gut adjusted over time, but initially, like I remember getting this churning, awful pain in like my gut and like right above my crotch area, pretty much. And it was just like this wrenching, awful pain when I would eat certain kind of like vegetables. I don't really get that anymore. Um, I don't know if like maybe a low FODMAP would have helped that at the time, but once again, I went carnivore and a lot of these issues went away. But then when I started to like go off of carnivore, there were certain foods that would kind of trigger that in me. And it's like, man, this sucks. But over time, I think I got adjusted to it. But I like how you kind of said you don't have to do these restricted diets for like the long term, because I think a lot of people get stuck on this where like they think this is the only way because this worked. Well, no, I mean, if you lose the weight and you were successful at that, but now you're having trouble with compliance, which is way more important than whatever diet is. If you like it, that's way more important. So if you can reintroduce stuff, why limit yourself? There's no reason to. And all the research is out there. People who have a high intake of meat, fruit, and vegetables live the longest and have like the lowest like overall mortality. So once again, why restrict if you don't have to?
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel that way about veggies too, certain ones. And I
Mhm.
think we're just not made to eat as many veggies as we've been told. And there are a lot of, they have that protective coating, and it causes inflammation, digestive issues. So just finding the vegetables that really you respond well to helps. I kind of stick to the mild veggies. Green beans and romaine lettuce are my favorite, actually. And then I eat potatoes and some kind of meat. So but I do eat a variety. I love lettuce. I love cilantro. I eat a lot of tacos. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's all good stuff too. Believe me, my wife and I will, we use siete seasoning a lot. I don't know if you've seen that. They have it like Costco and everything. It has like this real cool looking bird on it, but they make a ton of gluten-free stuff and like stuff that would kind of fit in like the paleosphere. That's the stuff that we get a lot, and I just absolutely love that stuff. But yeah, I also like the fact that you said you don't need a whole ton of fat and you don't need a whole bunch of carbs, because like I think people want to fall to these binary extremes, and like if you're drinking MCT oil laden coffee with a stick of butter in it, you're probably overdoing it. Like you have more than enough fat on your body, and the fat in your diet that you're taking in, that putting in 30 grams of fat in your coffee, it's probably not helping you.
I know, and I don't know. It's just kind of my own opinion. But when you're still waking up, your liver's still detoxing. And if you ever notice, like a liver diet is low fat. And I'm not saying I'm a low fat dieter, but in the morning I try to tend to be like, I do my blueberry water first thing to really keep cleansing and helping my body stay restored and nourished. And then I just have like gluten-free oats and a couple eggs, but I don't put butter in it. I don't put oil in it. So I have like a higher carb, low fat breakfast, but then the rest of the day I kind of just eat regularly. And to me, it seems to respond, because even like when I was doing the paleo, the what is it called? Bulletproof coffee, the butter, I did that. And you could feel like a pain under your rib where your liver is. If you do that for so long and you're already sick, fat first thing in the morning is not what you need. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, for me, like my ideal day is normally like Sunday, because I get to get up nice and early and I make a real carb heavy breakfast, so that way glycogen stores are completely repleted for your workout. And like, so I'll eat and then go for a walk or walk on the treadmill and then go hit my workout, and then after that, then I'll have my first meal with like a lot of fat in it, so that way you kind of obviously have protein and carbs first, but then like when you have fat as your second meal, then now that muscle protein synthesis effect is going to last a little bit longer, because it's going to slow down your digestion because of the fat. So, I really like what the way that you design your diet, because it's kind of the similar way that I do it, which once again, I do typically do like some kind of carby thing in the morning, and then for lunch or maybe my second meal, I'll get a little bit more fat in.
Yeah. And I guess, sometimes scheduling it around your workout, that's good too. Right. Like the carbs, making sure you're having your carbs within that big window of the workout versus not having your carbs around that time. I have a hard time doing that sometimes, but
What's up, everybody? We're going to take a quick break and tell you about the show's sponsors. We are brought to you by LMNT electrolytes. I've been using this stuff for years, and what I've honestly found is that if I didn't have electrolytes before some kind of cardio, and sometimes even before workouts, that my workout performance, or definitely cardio performance, would suffer greatly. Sodium is responsible for every single movement pretty much in your entire body, and let's say you drink a lot of caffeine like I like to do, then maybe it is a good idea, like I do every single morning, put some LMNT chocolate electrolytes there in your coffee to get a little bit more sodium, potassium, and magnesium in your coffee, so that way whatever diuretic effect you get from the caffeine is pretty much diluted by the fact that you put chocolate salt in it. Also, it tastes really, really good. Get some chocolate cream or hazelnut cream or even coconut, and mix that all up. It tastes really, really good. So make sure you go to drinklmnt.com/inlibertyandhealth and pick you up some electrolytes today. All right, guys, thanks.
Just because my schedule's it's never like consistent every day. So, but yeah.
So did you have to go through a period of like low carb, or was that kind of just something that you didn't find necessary? Because I feel like a lot of people kind of in the last 10 years, I would say definitely kind of came to health through like the paleo and now more of a low carb kind of perspective, which once again, I don't think is bad, but one of the people I've had on this podcast a lot and who you would probably really enjoy some of her work, Tara Garrison, she wrote a book, I think called Do Keto, but Not Forever. And I think that her idea is like perfect because she is like a low carb person. I'm like a reduced carb person, you know, usually like 200 grams of carbs a day and then maybe like 80 grams of fat. And right now I'm trying to lose weight. I like this idea of, once again, get your blood glucose in control. And if you're not that active, then a low carb diet is perfect for you. But like, don't do that forever because you're missing out on a lot of great, very, very healthy and good for you foods that you could really enjoy, but you're just not doing it right now because you're on keto. And like, you know, once again, you don't have to do that forever.
Right. And I agree. And I mean, potatoes are very good for your gut. I mean, sweet potatoes are even more, you know, impactful, but I never really did I never did keto, but I feel like there for a little while I probably was on the lower carb end. I didn't mean to be. I was just so sick that I literally was eating venison wrapped with bacon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh
and
God.
but also I did kale chips. I would make homemade. I would do potatoes, but I know I probably wasn't I wasn't eating enough carbs. And at that time, I wasn't like even in the gym. I wasn't like I did the gym a little bit in high school, but I never really stuck with it.
Sure.
And then so my initial goal was to heal, and then I got to where I don't know why, you know, it's just like, I probably need to lift some weights. I barely can lift 5 pounds, you know, and I know I probably wasn't eating enough carbs, but like I said, I was still healing and doing the celery juice, and I was eating blueberries, but I probably wasn't eating enough. So yeah, I've never did keto, but I do believe I was probably low carb for a little while.
Mm-hmm. So you deal with like a lot of sick people still then?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay. So what kind of was it like for you on the journey to get better? Because, you know, you've talked about going gluten-free and then how you kind of focused on certain herbs and stuff like that to kind of get your road to recovery. And now you put up a picture today of you at the gym and you look absolutely fantastic. So clearly you've recovered and you figured out what to do. So, I guess if you could detail out a little bit of that and then what it was kind of like to also get a little bit more active, because we know that muscle is the most important. It's the organ of longevity.
Yeah, the moment I started working out at home, like I said, like I would buy, I would just do body weight squats, push-ups, and then I would do the 5-pound dumbbells. I remember my kid; she was like super tiny at the time. I had the little pink ones for her. She was going, anyway, it was the cutest thing.
Yeah.
But once you start, and then you see like, oh my God, I didn't know I had chest muscles right here. You know, because I had already kind of lost a lot of weight because I was so sick. And I was like, I felt puny. So I was like, this is starting to feel good. And then you were like, oh, I want to feel more, you know, and then and then I noticed, you know, once I started doing that, I wasn't getting sick. And I know that had a lot to do with diet, but I know it had a lot to do with building muscle, because muscle is good for, you know, our immune system. It's needed. And then protein, you know, protein is priority, helps muscle growth, helps your immune system. And I wasn't getting sick. And it's been years since I've had to go get an antibiotic. And I used to live on them, like literally,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, so I really like that you focused on protein there too. As I've gotten older and as I've learned more and more about nutrition research, I used to think that the obesity crisis could be boiled down to carbs at first, and then I believed it was satiation. And now I'm kind of like, there's a lot of causes, and I think it's like something that you said earlier, and that I kind of want to tackle with you as well. We have alcohol at a ton of social events. We have a lot of social events based around food, and you know, people are much more sedentary than they used to be. So like those 3 factors alone could probably make up a lot of the obesity crisis. And then plus the availability of hyper palatable foods on every street corner everywhere, and people just don't account for that. So I guess, what, any thoughts there before I ask you the next question? Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like when I was, I didn't really drink a lot, but when I would go out, to relieve and have a date with my husband or something, I would drink, probably more than I should. I have that problem too. Like I just like, I don't just do one or two, but I'm not an alcoholic, but I just was there for a good time. But I
Guilty.
noticed like, yeah, I was, I was just very inflamed. I mean, it would take days to recover. I would have joint pain. So yeah, I think that is a lot. A lot of it is what we're eating and how our lifestyles are. But I still think, even though I've given up alcohol, I still think it's doable, but you've got to be consistent in your daily routine. And even prep before you're going to drink, like sea moss and coconut water before, and maybe all night and then the next day. And I'm telling you, you probably won't ever like really suffer from a hangover if you like prep yourself, then kind of have a couple coconut water drinks throughout the night, and then the next day do the same thing, and make sure you're not eating a lot of processed foods. You probably feel really good.
Oh.
And help your liver stay somewhat sane.
Right. Okay. So one of the show sponsors is actually Element right there. So you can see they say this box is salty as fuck, and that's because Rob Wolf has been on the show, and then they were kind enough to send me a whole bunch of Element stuff. So make sure everybody you go get the world's best electrolytes right there. But one thing that you brought up there that's actually in another brand of electrolytes I get from MTS Nutrition, who also works with the show, and their stuff's right there. They have coconut water in their electrolytes. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I really don't know much about it, but it's in a lot of electrolytes, and I'm guessing that probably means important.
Yeah, it's got so many electrolytes. It's good for your gut. It's straight like natural, you're not just making a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
And I even know like people in the Caribbean that I've met or talked to, like when they were younger, they would have like a really bad stomach virus and and can't keep anything down, but coconut water literally saved them, from being hospitalized. So just a little syringe feeding. I really believe in coconut water, and I love when I love when companies put it in their hydration formula or in their pre-workout, that sort of thing. I think it's really important.
Okay, yeah. So MTS Naturalite has I can't remember the exact dosage of coconut water, but then also Relight by Redmond Real Salt. Theirs has coconut water powder in there as well. So those are the two ones that come up off the top of my head. I know Element doesn't have it, but they have more sodium than the other two, if I recall correctly. So yeah, that's real interesting.
Yeah.
Now, is there do you know, what about like MCT oil? Because I know that's a big craze. Do you think there's benefit there, or do you think that's just kind of like additional fat that, if you enjoy it, cool, or, what are your thoughts?
I think it's just a processed fat that we don't really need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I might be wrong. But that's just, I try to keep things simple. I have butter and olive oil in my house, and that's all I use.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we were kind of talking a little bit earlier about just, people who go crazy with the fats. I see people who are just like, oh, I need the fats. Well, just relax. That's fine if you get a little bit, but like, you don't need to just go absolutely overkill on it. Okay, back to kind of like you healing. So you initially went gluten-free, if I understand that correctly. And now could you quantify how much that kind of helped you out versus maybe some other stuff, or was that kind of like it, or, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that was probably a lot of my issues, only because I was eating so much bread and processed wheat, and which the wheat we buy today is not really good, or we have here available to us. It's very hybridized and manipulated. So I think between that, my childhood immunizations, because I suffered with asthma my whole life, and I was sick a good bit. And I had joint pain. I knew those were red flags, but I didn't know why. And at one point in my life, well, for years, I was literally taking ibuprofen probably twice a day to deal with pain. And that's that's 14 years old versus into like my 20s taking ibuprofen. And that's really bad for your gut too. But I feel like it had a lot to do with my pain, my fibromyalgia or whatever, it has, and your nervous system is just fried and it needs to heal. And in order to heal, it needs real food. So cutting gluten for all three of us was like literally life-saving. So I would say, yeah, it's changed me for the better.
Okay, so do you have celiacs, or were there like other autoimmune issues that kind of surface for you? Because I know for my wife, I think it's like a pain in her stomach that she gets, because I know if she has something that doesn't sit right with her, if it's really bad, she'll say, this feels like I ate something with gluten.
Oh yeah, I get that. Well, I used to, like, it was a pain right where your sternum ends, right there in the pit of your stomach, and it just was like and it would come in waves. I mean, and I had a lot of gut issues too. I'm very open. I had a lot of GI problems. I had hemorrhoids. I had bleeding when I was using the restroom. It was very scary. And I had chronic hives where like the hives were everywhere. They were getting in my lips. They were getting in my throat. I couldn't breathe, and I did post on Twitter a few times. Like half of my face would swell, and the hive would get in my joint. I couldn't squat or couldn't bend my ankles, or my shoes wouldn't fit because my legs would be so swollen. And I know a lot of that had to do with gluten, but it also had a lot to do with my lifestyle and the other toxic crap that I was consuming and doing too.
Okay,
yeah, but I think I literally had problems from head to toe. And when I tell people I had almost every symptom, I'm not lying.
Yeah. So do your kids kind of carry that too? Because I don't think either my wife's parents or really anyone in her family has a gluten allergy other than her stepmom, who obviously isn't biologically related to her. But it's kind of curious how that happens, because I don't want to say it seems common, but there's enough people that I know with it that it does concern me, and it seems like in some people it manifests differently.
Yeah, and I think but around like 1988, which is the year I was born, I believe I've seen a lot of people just get, from that generation on, it's just gotten worse. Like, I'm the first one in my family on my mom and dad's side. I mean, anybody to have an autoimmune disease, especially as severe as I had. We had like strokes and heart attacks, in our older generations, and maybe one or two cancers, but not that much. But I'm the first one with autoimmune. It was actually my daughter first, then me, and then my oldest. So I believe it's something to do with what they're putting in our bodies when we're born.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt, but I kind of want to go down that rabbit hole too, and we have to watch how we phrase these certain treatments, because when it goes on YouTube, they're very, very picky about the algorithm. So when
we can call it something, but
I normally run with treatments, because that seems to go underneath the radar.
Oh yeah, let's do the treatments. Yeah, because that's what they are.
Yeah, right. So we're loaded up with said treatments when we're a kid, and now they're pushing one specifically. But I guess let's kind of start with the ones that were given as kids. Now, the normie understanding, and I'm always open to more information. I just never looked into this. Is that okay? Well, these things are well researched, and they have a lot of science to support them, and they're good for you. So that's why we do them. Now, do I believe that? I don't know, but could I be wrong, or could that be completely wrong? Sure. Now, is there science behind it? Sure, but does this mean that it's blanketly good for everybody? I don't believe so. So what are your thoughts on all the treatments that were given as children then?
I think the science is paid science, and the science that is paid is actually the pseudoscience, and the herbalism is actually the real science.
Okay.
But they've manipulated, it's part of the game. And I used to, as a nurse, I had all the faith in all the treatments, because that's just what you did. That's what the book said. That's what all the authority members said. That's just what the doctor said. So that's what you did. But just throughout my discovery and noticing that the longer I stay or my kids stay away from those treatments, the healthier we are. So, and just, there are so many people silenced about it. I don't want to say too much because, I don't want you to get whatever, but, whatever, but, it's my own personal really conviction. And I feel like it's God just leading me to that path, and restoring health to generations, because we have lost a lot in the last 2 to 3 generations, just because there's a war on food, farming, and I'm not just saying just those treatments cause these issues, but it's a combination of everything. It's the control of the water, it's the big food, it's pharmaceuticals and that sort of thing. It's a combination of everything.
Yeah, they really have robbed essentially your birthright to health, and that's the way I like to put it, because if I could give people the feeling of holding 500 pounds in their hand successfully, or running, under an 8-minute mile, and the feeling of just being robustly healthy, I would give it to every single person on the planet, so that way they could understand what it's like to achieve that. And I feel like that's been taken from us.
I do too. And people lose hope, and then they look at you and like, oh, well, you have it easy, or that's easy for you to say. And they just literally shun you, and you're just trying to help them. And I even told my husband today, I was like, literally, it feels so good to feel strong and lean. I don't think I ever really felt that way in my life, and pain-free. So it's life-changing. And this is what, we're trying to save people in a way, and help them, but can't, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So just got to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely try to lead by example. So you were also a nurse at one point. When did you leave, and what was kind of the precursor for you leaving? And I'm really interested in your answer, because I'm curious if certain dates and certain events correlated with that.
Well, it's pretty funny. Kind of funny. I'm kind of open about it because I'm no longer associated with anyone there. But I feel I was bullied for a long time at work, manipulated, abused, verbally, emotionally abused by doctors or, other people in the hospital. And I'm not the only one, so I'm not singling myself out or victimizing. I've watched it's like a hierarchy, and you either belong or you don't. And if you don't, then you never hear the end of it. And I quit in March of 2020. So I had a few of the new patients, you know what I mean? But I didn't have a lot.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a little break from the show real quick to tell you about the show's sponsors. I am now working with the great Stephen Fox to bring you Fox & Sons coffee. As you can see, I got 2 bags right here, or for those listening, I was holding 2 bags. It is organically roasted up in Michigan. If you're a caffeine addict, much like myself, then head over to foxandsonscoffee.com to get yourself some of their fantastic coffee. They got a light roast, which I'm holding in my hand. They have the electric boogaloo blend, which is fantastic as well. I just had it this morning. And if you're like me, you like dark roast coffee, which kicks you right in the freaking face first thing in the morning, they have that for you as well. So head over to foxandsonscoffee.com, use code Kyle, Kyle, to get yourself a little discount. Let them know that I sent you, and get yourself caffeinated, get jacked and tan, and do what you got to do. All right, guys, back to the podcast. Thanks. Okay, yeah, that's fascinating, because I remember We can say coronavirus, but once again, when you say certain other things, and that's when YouTube will ding you. But I remember, and I share this every single time it comes up, but 3 years ago, I want to say it was March 5th of 2020, I put on Facebook, I said, I'm not scared of the coronavirus. And every year I'm like, got that right. I got that one right.
Yes.
Where I got it wrong was I said it would all be over by May, and that was completely incorrect, obviously. So, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something more to do with that, huh? Or more to that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always had to wear the facial covering because I never would take the treatment, the flu. Yeah, so I was kind of used to wearing it, so it wasn't a big issue for me. But it was so funny. I remember when everything shut down, and I didn't quit yet, but I got 3 black cats on March 13th. It was a Friday. I'll never forget. And then, the shit hit the fan then. But I thought that was kind of funny. 3 little omens. They were like, do, do, do. Something's about to happen.
Yeah, I think my wife and I got our Doberman Australian Shepherd mix. If I call him in the room, he'll start squeaking his toy. But yeah, we got him, I want to say like a month beforehand, and then the whole world went freaking crazy. So did you completely have a exodus from the medical field at that point because of the kind of the treatment you were getting and you experienced there? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, for the most part. Oh, he brought his toy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. I did do part-time at a surgery center. It was nice, but I knew I just wanted to get away from anything to do with mainstream bedside nursing. So yeah, I mean, and I stayed there for a little while, but not much longer.
Okay, yeah. So the thing that seems to be popular now is more functional medicine doctors. So like one of the big ones that comes to mind is Chris Kresser, who he's real big in like the paleo community. He considers himself a functional medicine practitioner, but I really like this idea because it seems like they tackle a lot more of the lifestyle stuff, as to where the common set that you always hear is that the average person spends like 7 minutes with their doctor. That's not a very good medium or amount of time to spend with somebody if you're really concerned about their health. So I don't know if you're well versed there or kind of what your thoughts are surrounding like this sort of decentralized move towards functional medicine.
I actually studied it for a year.
Okay.
I studied functional medicine for a year. I didn't proceed. I didn't feel they are very good at discovering the root of it, but I don't know, maybe it's just not for me. It's kind of seems more tailored towards supplement obsession, and I might be wrong, that just, I mean, I don't take a lot of supplements, and I feel like it's more of a natural thing. So that's why I've just decided to keep forever studying herbs and food. Food is medicine, herbs are medicine. I mean, we can study and do all the blood work, but if you don't ever really do the work, you're never going to be free from having to take all those things. So I feel like a lot of times people switch and they obsess with switching from a pharma pill to like a supplement pill, so it's kind of the same, like, oh, I got to find something that's going to heal me. No, it's what you do every day, and it's the food you eat that's going to heal you. So
yeah, that's funny that a lot of people really don't consider that they'll never consider all the junk that they're putting in their gullet day in, day out. But when it comes to certain treatments or anything like that, you'll still see very obese people walking around in masks. And I'm not saying I don't feel for those people, they're bad people, but like, you've had 3 years at this point to figure out how to get healthy, and it doesn't take 3 years, so you're complacent. And let's get a feel for these people, because there's so much information out there. There's a lot of bad information, and sometimes it is hard to kind of find the truth amongst all the bullshit.
Yeah, and it is. And it's even like since March of 2020 versus now, there's so much, there's so much online. People are, they're trying to make money, and I understand, and that's nothing against, but they're kind of flood everybody with, oh, this is best, this supplement company is best, this one's better, this, and it's like, okay, wait, you can like intuitively pick the company that's best for you, but at the end of the day, what are you doing? Like, before you look out for any companies, what are you doing to better your life and your health? You need to be the core of it, not some company or supplement. And it's hard because people start to think, oh, she's just trying to sell something, and there's a lot of us out there that aren't really trying to sell anything. I mean, I have links now because I've actually grown, and people are like, hey, I really like you, will you help us, and that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, and it's only companies I really trust, but
Yeah.
and people I know personally, but it's not about that, and if we can get like genuine people to follow other genuine people, like, hey, I've been really sick, it doesn't look like it, but I have been, and I didn't document it, so there's not a lot to show because I was too depressed and stressed to really let me take a selfie while I'm feeling like really bad.
Yeah.
It just, but a lot has changed in 3 years, just from that end. I know that was kind of a tangent, but
No, that's okay. Yeah, it's kind of funny that you said earlier people will kind of look at someone like you or I who, struggled with our health for a period of time, and they'll say, well, you just have it easy now. Because I've gotten that before, like, oh, well, you have it easy. It's like you have no idea. I struggled. I jumped up, anywhere from like 50 or anywhere from, like 30 to 50 pounds in a year for years on end. It wasn't like it took me, a couple months to lose 70 pounds. I mean, this was the course of a couple years. It took me to get to somewhere where I'm comfortable and compliant with my diet and find something that I can do consistently that keeps me, where I want to be. Like this it is easy. So that's why I feel for people. And like, okay, you can I was technically fat shamed, but I'm not saying that's the right approach for everybody. But there is something to holding people to a standard, but that doesn't mean you berate every single obese person you see. That's wrong. But you should always be there to help other people and kind of help them find their way to better health. And we shouldn't try to kick the ladder out from underneath people when they're taking their first step up.
exactly, we need to be there when they need it the most, and that is the hardest part, going from like your comfortable life, somewhat comfortable even though it's full of pain, to that leap, and that's the hardest part. So
Yeah, 0 to 1 is a quite a far distance, but 1 to 2 doesn't seem quite as far, and then from 2 to 10 is a lot less further than that. And then once you kind of start compounding positive changes in your life, then it's pretty easy to continue to make progress.
yeah, and sometimes it's, you lose people that aren't, on the same page as you or don't want to grow like you. So I mean, it's hard, you lose a lot of relationships along the way, and so that's another thing that you feel like you've lost, but you end up finding people that have a lot in common with you, and it adds to your quality of life versus just making you feel guilty for doing better than the other person that has pretty much the same option and choices you have. So
yeah, it's like crabs in a bucket, which is they love to pull people back in, and misery loves company. But
yeah.
oh, damn it. I had the question right on the tip of my tongue. Oh, when it comes to overly restrictive diets, what I tend to find and what my personal experience was is that when people do overly restrictive diets for too long, something breaks. And typically that's something that breaks is their compliance. And that break of compliance looks like a binge at the Cheesecake Factory or the all-you-can-eat buffet with absolutely everything they can get their hands on. So, I guess how do you approach you mentioned gluten-free, but like you don't have hard, or do you set hard rules around food? Because like I said, sometimes it almost seems like when you set too strict of rules, then something breaks. So, I'm curious about your approach there.
There's kind of a fine line for me because there comes a point where you're like, okay, I'm being too relaxed about all this, and you have to hold yourself accountable. But I'm not very strict on myself. I'm like, if I want to go have gluten-free pizza, I'm gonna go have it, unless I'm like in a cut or trying to build and lean out a little bit. Other than that, I just kind of listen to my body. But I always say, like, if I'm going to go have this healthy pizza, even though it's like full of calories, I'm not going to eat like that all day long, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not restrictive, but I do enjoy treats, and I don't, and my kids do too. I don't skimp out on that. So I just think that you have to just hold yourself accountable and just keep it like railing back in, just like, okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I joked when my wife and I got married that when we were in Florida that I drank enough tequila to either give a full-grown elephant diabetes or kill it. So, but yeah, then obviously right after our honeymoon, our wedding and everything, it's like, okay, well now it's gonna suck. You're not gonna be able to enjoy all the donuts and everything that you ate while you were down there. But that was then. This is now. You're one meal off and you're one meal back on, which I
Yeah.
think it's a mentality that a lot of people kind of need to carry. Is that like, you don't hate yourself, stop moralizing food. Just understand that you went off of your diet for one plan, and it's not a moral failing. It's just, hey, you're gonna do better tomorrow. Dust yourself off. It's okay.
Yeah, and I believe like you need to work harder than you play hard. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how I'm like, I got to do 7 days of eating good or 7 days of reading, and then I can go have a whole day to play at the creek or whatever. So that's just the way I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
You know, we don't deserve a treat every day.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
You know, we don't deserve a ton of donuts and alcohol every day. So
Yeah, and then you obviously see the consequences of people who live like that, and it's not pretty to say the least. So we've been going for a little bit now. I've enjoyed this conversation a lot, and I found it very, very enlightening, especially the treatments that you'd kind of mentioned, not the those kind of treatments, but spiritual, and then with different kind of mushrooms and stuff like that. If people want to find you and support you and check out your work, where can everybody check that out?
yeah, I'm really liking Twitter, so definitely find me there. You know, Quantum, it's got 2 R's, so Quantum RR, but it spells revival, so it's Quantum R Revival. And then on Instagram, I'm at the Quantum_revival. And yeah, and then I have the links there under each of those, so you can find my website too. I have a beginner's herbal guide that I have up, and that's about it right now. I have a few blog posts, and then YouTube is the same as Instagram, everywhere except Twitter because my handle was taken already. But so the Quantum_revival at YouTube. So I'm going to start being consistent on there, posting educational, 7 to 10 minute videos about some kind of over-the-counter medication or a chronic issue, and I'm going to try to keep it concise so it's easy to watch for the busy families out there.
Nice.
But,
well, yeah, I think more people in this space kind of need to do content like that instead of all long form podcasts, because the running joke is that you're not a libertarian unless you have a podcast, and we didn't even touch that third rail. But if you got anything else, we'll close her out.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think I had something to add, but I can't remember. So,
well, that's okay. I will, if you remember it, just tweet it out to me and I'll be sure to retweet it. We'll share that around. Okay, well, yeah, I really appreciate your time, and hopefully everybody finds value in it. Hopefully everybody goes and checks out your stuff. I think I'm going to, because like I said, this is kind of an area that I just don't know anything about, but interests me.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, if you follow me on Twitter and YouTube, Kyle, like if y'all have any issues or like something you want to know about, I have a lot in my head, so it's hard for me to decide what YouTube video to do next. So I have like a list. So like if you have any ideas or anything you want me to cover, let me know, because that'll help me a lot.
Nice. All right. Well, yeah, I definitely feel your pain because I sometimes like throw ideas out there for like, oh, what should I do a podcast on? And then I end up doing like a couple hours of research on some topics. And then finally, someone decides what to do. So yeah, I completely
Yeah.
empathize with that point.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. And like I said, everyone, make sure you go check out her stuff. Her links will be below. And until next time, everybody take care.